There's two kinds of karma. If you do something that takes away someone else's free will,
And God created the Akashic records.
it's not spiritual bypassing to notice it and bring your attention over here and think about something else. That's being conscious. Going back in time into past lives absolutely can transform this life and produce healing and evolution.
Thank you for tuning in. Today, my guest is Janet Amare. She is a professor of energy medicine. She's a certified hypnosis instructor, an author, and an expert in past life regression. And in my opinion, one of the most phenomenal healers I have ever met. Janet, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. So, the topic that I wanted to talk about today is karma, because there's a lot of misconceptions about karma. And I get asked that a lot from my clients. And sometimes the concepts are harder to explain. And
Yes.
I think there needs to be a little bit more explanation around what that whole concept is. So, can we begin by, if I ask you, what is karma? Could you explain it?
Sure. I mean, there's many different definitions, but I think what's most important is that people understand how it operates in their lives. So that's how I'm going to define it is how it's important to people. So there's two kinds of karma, negative karma and sat karma, SAT karma, which means good karma. And how negative karma operates is if you have taken away someone's free will. So let's say in this lifetime, or if you believe in past lives in a past life, if you do something that takes away someone else's free will or takes away their ability to complete their past life, then you end up in your Akashic records, which is an accounting of your good and negative karma in part. You end up with negative karma for having done that. So an example would be, let's say I'm in a past life and my purpose is to be a doctor, to take care of people, to help them heal. Maybe I have some children and they have a purpose as well. But someone comes along and they are drunk or they're just not watching what they're doing and they run me over and kill me, right? So they have not been responsible. And because of their irresponsibility, I lost my life. I lost my potential to complete my life purpose, to also help my children complete their life purpose. That person that ran me over is going to have some karma that they have to deal with because of taking away my free will. Now, some people are confused and they think that person has to come back into another life and help me. No, it's not tit for tat. It's not, I have to come back and help that exact person, but I have to do something if I have taken away someone's free will to learn from that, experience, to possibly experience something like that myself, and to make up for it. So I've seen this after 40 years of doing past life work. I've seen examples where that person had to come back and be a family person themselves, raise a number of children, or run an orphanage to make up for having harmed my children, taken away their father that was going to help them go through university, etc. Or they might be in a similar accident and be disabled and lose their ability to do their purpose. So they have to learn the lesson somehow. So that's one of the ways that negative karma happens. And then there's sat karma.
May I,
And what,
before you go on,
yeah,
that example was actually, wow, I have to ask you about that. So two
sure.
things. What if in that lifetime there was a contract that that person was going to die in this accident? Number one. And number two, what if that person wasn't a doctor but was a older man who didn't have it in their life path to help, hundreds of people?
Yeah, I love that question, Sholina, because again, it relates to how karma operates is when we have a contract. So let's say I'm in heaven and that person that ran me over is in heaven, and we're sorting through what are we going to do in our next life, right? How are we going to make up for our karma? How are we going to learn from these experiences? And the most important question is how we're going to grow spiritually. So yes, we might have a contract and we come into this life and that person might say, because I love you so much, I'm going to come into this life and I'm going to run you over because there's something you need to learn about appreciating life. So if you ask the question, why would we have a contract to do that? It only ever happens when you love somebody enough. Believe it or not, a person who murders someone else, they often have a contract because they love that person so much. Why? Because you're going to take on karma. So the answer is, if we had a contract and the contract was they were going to run me over as the doctor, that person on a soul level must love me enough because they know they're going to take on karma. And that would be a situation where I've decided I'm going to be run over because I need to learn a lesson. Possibly, usually, the lesson is about valuing your life, valuing having a family, not taking it for granted. But that's a very different situation. If we have a contract, it's different because then they have not taken away my ability to do my purpose. I have decided that myself. So it's a little bit different because I've decided it. I've chosen that contract. They still get karma, but it's a different form of karma and a different way that they might work that out.
Interesting. Okay.
That's a very interesting question. Yes.
So then you're
Then
saying,
you also asked about what if I were an elderly person? And I guess I'm assuming you're saying we still had a contract, but I'm not a doctor. I'm just an old person. And then we decide somehow that they're going to run me over. Still, they're going to have karma from taking my life. But if there's a contract again, it's a little bit different karma for them. And in my contract, I'm decided I would be run over. I must choose that for a reason. I wouldn't have a contract unless there was something for me to learn or experience from that. Sometimes you get crippled in the accident and there's learning from that. The learning is usually about being taken care of, being vulnerable. There's a million reasons you might choose a contract like that. But there's still karma no matter how old a person is. It's just very different. If you take away a young person's life and their whole life is in front of them, and there's many things they're going to do and they're going to have an impact on the planet, greater karma than somebody who's older and they've already had that impact. So all of
okay.
these things come into play. And so you can imagine the size of the Excel spreadsheet that God must have keeping track of all these things. And that's what we call the Akashic record, is
Right.
that um, vibrational Excel spreadsheet where all of those things are managed. It's
Mhm.
actually an interesting story about when the Akashic Records got started as well.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Well, um, back at the time when humans were coming into form on Earth, that was the time of Lemuria. So, what I mean by that is um, we have a soul level that's etheric, that's vibrational, that's just light. And then we come into these human bodies. So, there was a time on Earth where souls were deciding to incarnate into physical bodies on Earth. That was at the time of Lemuria, was one of the most important times like that. There were other times, but that's an important time. And so some souls came in and incarnated into human bodies, and then they decided to go back into spiritual form. They'd individuate into a tree to have an experience as a tree for a while, go back into spirit form, go into a fish, back into spirit form, into a bird, back into spirit form. So humans were doing that, and then God put humanoid bodies on Earth. And believe it or not, God even created homes, built the homes for people in ancient Atlantis. That's why we're never going to find the tools that were used to build those homes because God literally, poop, created them on Earth. Most
Wow.
people don't realize that.
Wow.
Many of the buildings and even the Great Crystal at the time of Atlantis, God just went poof and put that on Earth as a way for us to generate energy. So we're never going to find where the Great Crystal was dug from. We're never going to find where a lot of the materials came from in ancient Atlantean homes because that was a time on Earth when God provided for us homes, canals, the Great Crystal.
Hmm.
But what happened was that some of those beings that came into form at the time of Lemuria and then ancient Atlantis was in a different place on the planet. Some of them got stuck in human form because they became really addicted to the pleasures of the physical body, meaning eating food, walking on the earth, watching the sunset, making love, the more they became desiring of the physical, the more and more they lowered their vibration to the point where they could not get out of the bodies again and become etheric. So they got stuck in the physical bodies for a period of time. And then, unfortunately, some of those beings had cross pollination, if you will, with animals. So a human making love with an animal and creating a part human, part animal. So the Minotaur is an example of that, a bull in a human body, a centaur, a satyr, fawns. Those were the result of two things. One was humans making love with animals. The other was humans individuating into animal bodies and then staying and getting stuck in the animal body. So there's two different things that were happening. As a result of that, the divine stepped in and said, I'm not happy with this happening because it created a lot of suffering for animals, but especially for the beings who were part human and part animal, because they were called things at the time and they were treated like things. They were treated like slaves and they were misused and abused. So God stepped in and took that capacity away from us. We no longer have the ability to make love with an animal and create a half animal, half human. If you've ever wondered why is that not possible, God took that away from us. Around the same time, God also took away our ability to live to about the year 700. Originally, humanoid beings on Earth could live to 800 years old. Many people think, oh, we don't do that anymore because Earth isn't as healthy. No, God took that away because, again, we were abusing it. God said we're going to live to about 120. Some people live just slightly over that. Most people less than that. It's very common for people to live to 100, 110. That's why, because we're actually limited to about 120 years. God also changed some of the rules on Earth and took away some aspects of our free will, and God created the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records specifically are for us to learn to pay for our debts of taking away someone else's free will. So around that time is when the Akashic Records were created. And so they're very much earth-bound records. They don't exist everywhere for every being on every planet. They're here because this is an experiment in free will. And we were taking advantage of that experiment and misusing God's gift to us of being able to create. So I almost feel tears as I say that because it is a tremendous gift to humanity to be able to create in the way that God can create, meaning we as human beings don't realize it, but we literally can create a planet. We can create a solar system. We can create a universe. We can manifest things way beyond what we have any comprehension of doing. Now, there are, there are humans on Earth who realize that and who are consciously using their manifesting ability to create places where other humans can grow spiritually because they realize that's really what we're here for. We're here to be as God and to evolve spiritually. And that's really what the Akashic Records and what karma is meant to do, is to force us into a direction of knowing that we are spiritual beings just having a physical reality, knowing that we're here to create, and causing us to learn lifetime after lifetime, oh, not meant to take away someone else's free will. In fact, we're meant to use our free will only for ourselves, only to direct our own lives, not to force animals to do anything, not to force nature to do anything, not to force other human beings to do anything, not to even make choices for our children, not to make choices for anyone else other than ourselves, and to focus only on spiritual growth. And karma is a way that God created to channel us in that direction, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Every time I talk to you, I have so many more questions.
That's great.
Yeah, but we go off tangent I have so many questions, but okay, if I want to stick to the topic, which is karma, I need to go back to your example because you just blew my mind. Because the doctor who got run over, right, and killed, you said that if somebody took that free will and he died, I I always assumed that when somebody dies, that was their time to die and that was already written in their contract. So you're saying that that's not always the case.
Yeah, there is there is a component of our lives that is free will, where we decide before we come here our time of birth, our place of birth, and our time of death. However, there are distortions in that. Meaning, I know this is going to freak a lot of people out, but there are moments where someone has decided to come into a child's body and into the mother, and someone else jumps in ahead of them. Someone else on the other side can jump in and say, no, I'm taking over this body. That does happen. It's rare, but that's a way that they would get negative karma, and it does happen. There's also times when you've laid out your purpose, you've decided who you're going to be, what you're going to do. Someone else comes along and disobeys the universal laws and takes your life away. It does happen. Many of those are a contract, meaning I can tell you examples I know of where someone that I know was killed and there was a contract with that person, they would kill them at that time. However, there are distortions where somebody jumps the gun and kills somebody, and it is a premeditated and would result in karma. Then there are accidents that things go beyond the boundaries because we have free will as a humanity. However, the one thing that's not going to happen, and again, we are talking about the main topic, which is karma, but karma is a big deal, and there's many different components to karma that most people don't realize. Meaning, one of the things that God has set in place is that we're never going to be able to explode this planet. We've gotten to that place a number of times, ancient Atlantis, even ancient Egypt, even, believe it or not, World War I, World War II, and 9/11. 9/11, there were meant to be 43 different cities hit, maybe more, and it could have been world destruction. We literally could have blown the planet apart in terms of what was intended. When that is about to occur, God sends in the ascended masters, the spiritual beings, the celestial beings who are in control of the earth take over. And that's when our free will is taken away because we are not allowed to blow up this planet. This is something that God created. There's a purpose for it. As far as I'm concerned, that will probably never happen because of that fail-safe, right? So we have free will. However, we're designed for awakening. We're designed for enlightenment. So eventually we're going to come back and merge with source. That's also part of karma that, like I said, it's there as a way for us to learn and to direct us back to source. So divine will wants us to grow and evolve. Human will can take us backwards. However, we're going to be guided. And when God sees us do that, God does take over. I mean, Noah's Ark is an example of God taking over, literally, and saying, I'm going to wipe you guys out, just leave, about a couple of thousand people on Earth, the chosen ones that went from Atlantis up to Mount Ararat. They were there for a number of months, then they came down, and they're the ones that helped people in Egypt to evolve. That's why if you look at Egyptian history, there's farmers, there's black and white people farming, and then all of a sudden this huge expansion and evolution. It's because people that had escaped from ancient Atlantis came into the shores of the Nile and taught the Egyptian farmers how to build pyramids, etc. But anyway, I digress. I'm just saying God intervenes and takes over when we're getting too far off track. And I firmly believe that 2024 is a turning point where that could also happen, where there's enough darkness on earth right now, enough people creating fear, enough people doing crazy things to the earth's energy field. Just one example is 5G. Another example is we had 5,000 satellites. Now we have 12,000 satellites. Another 30,000 satellites are going up. We are creating enough distortion in the energy field of Earth that if we're not careful, there might be another intervention. And that's why I'm doing everything in my power this year to help my community to evolve, to move into states of enlightenment, to move into fifth dimension. Because I believe the more we raise our vibration, the more we allow everybody on Earth that has a great idea for Earth to come forward and do that, as opposed to the people that are just operating from greed and mass destruction. So I think we're at a focal point now, same as we were in ancient Atlantis, where we might have an intervention.
Wow. Yeah. All the more reason for us to not get caught up in the fear mongering and just keep our vibrations high and just keep focusing on what
Exactly.
we want, right? For the world.
Yeah. So I've developed a whole series of seminars, my energy medicine level 13 next year. Everything that my partner Evelyn Bernhardt is going to be doing is going to be focused on moving us into multidimensional states. I'm putting all of my resources into that because I believe we're at a point on the fence where we can go into the darkness or into the light, and I want to shift the balance into the light.
Mm-hmm. And this is a year where you feel that this might be the cutoff point. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, well, it's a great year in the sense that it could be the year where we tip the scales enough that we all go into states of enlightenment, or it could be the year where we allow so much darkness that God needs to intervene and save us.
Mhm.
I'm voting for the former, that we tip the scales ourselves, right?
Yeah. And for anybody who's listening, I for example, focus on the 8 year. It's an 8 year, so that's a sign of infinity. So just keep focus on your manifesting what it is that you want to see in the world. So it's quite powerful.
Absolutely. I
It's
agree. That's why I'm saying it's a focal point year where we have so much power, so much free will that we can clear a lot of karma. So coming back to karma, when so let's say it's you, Sholina, and you teach somebody something that helps them grow spiritually, or you teach them something or heal them in such a way that helps them go into an awakened state or an enlightened state, that's where you get the most good karma. As you get more good karma, you raise your vibration, you raise the vibration of thousands of people around you, right? So your good works can affect thousands of people around you. Even people listening to this recording can get more hopeful, can see, oh, there's something I can do about what's happening. Because so many people around me, I'm sure you're experiencing the same with your clients, have gone into fear and they're pulled into fear by other people in fear. We can pull them out of that by saying, all you got to do is go interdimensional. All you need to do is go into more meditations. I've been teaching people work on your 12 chakras, not your 7 chakras. You work on the 12 chakras, you go interdimensional, you pull yourself out of this dimension, you realize you're a spiritual being, you feel so much more empowered, and then that leads to doing your purpose, clearing your karma, evolving, helping other people evolve. There's so much we can do this year. As you said, it's a year of so much power and creativity. I'm so excited about this year. And I'm also so focused on helping the people who aren't excited.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those, but then there's a lot of those who are waking up and really stepping into, like, it's golden moments for them. It's brilliant what's out
Absolutely.
there on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just keep focusing on that goal. And wow, there's again, we have so much that we could talk about. Um, my mind is already turning, but going back to karma and contracts. So we have a soul family that we come with when we come here, right? We have contracts with this particular family. And one of the things that had caused confusion for a while was if you have a contract to, maybe not with a specific person, but let's say that you had chose to learn the lesson of betrayal. It could be not just one particular person, it could be any person in that family, right? Your soul family. Or what if, maybe this is a better question.
You mean that decides to betray you, you mean?
Yeah. Or if I had a
Yeah, again,
contract with somebody,
sorry.
like I had a contract with my husband, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
that he was going to teach me about betrayal, but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't happen with him for whatever reason. Let's say he was the one who got hit by a car, and then I met somebody else, and now is that person to teach me about betrayal?
Yeah. So one of the things that happens during sleep is that we go into brainwave states that mirror the layers around the earth. So the earth has an energy field, has many, many layers and dimensions. And so what happens is we go up into those layers and dimensions during sleep. and our brain waves go into each of those layers and dimensions. And one of those dimensions is where we go into such an altered state that we go back up to heaven and into the learning centers, whatever you want to call them, seminar rooms, educational institutions, where we made some of these decisions and we rework our life, right? So we've, as you say, we come here, we have a contract, it's going to be with this certain person. Oh, they're gone. They're not going to fulfill that contract, or maybe they decide to do something differently. That's the whole point of free will, is for us to make different decisions to go a little bit sideways. So then we can go up to the educational institutions in that altered state during sleep often and make a new decision, make a new choice, have a new contract with someone else. Their soul's up there, our soul's up there. That's why we come back down and I had a dream about that person. Sometimes we're up in heaven with that person making a new contract or learning something with them or remembering something. We come back down to earth and it's like, I haven't seen that person in a long time. Guess why? Because they have a contract with you that wasn't fulfilled. You're not seeing them anymore. So you need to undo that contract and make a contract with someone else. So we look at what I call the etheric internet. We go on the etheric internet where we find the right program and pattern and a person who fits that program and pattern to take over that contract with us.
Okay, amazing.
Now,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to happen during sleep. I just want to qualify. We do it during sleep when we're unconscious. A conscious person like you could literally go up into the fifth dimension and say, God, this person's left. I feel like I had a contract. I feel like I haven't, completed it. I feel like I need to learn about betrayal or money or whatever. Build me a new contract. So you consciously can do that. Most people are not conscious enough to know to do that. So it happens during sleep.
Okay, that is amazing. But I'm still stuck on this whole contract thing because I've always thought that, if somebody's gone, they're gone because they had a contract and that was their time. So then let's say we talk about, okay, this is something that I haven't talked about publicly before, but it's going to come out because I do plan on talking about it. So my uncle who molested me for years in my childhood, was that a contract or was that him, him taking over my free will? What is that? And how do you know the difference?
So we'd have to go up to your Akashic Record Hall and his Akashic Record Hall and ask the question. I guess what I would ask you is what does contract mean to you? Because we also have agreements. We don't just have contracts. A contract is more sort of like a binding thing where like I have a contract with you or you have a contract with your uncle that he's going to come in and molest you. He's going to take on the karma for that because he knows you need to learn a lesson about empowerment, for example. That'd be an example of a contract. Then there's also agreements. There's also lessons and learning. There's also intergenerational healing. Excuse me, so maybe you're partway through your life and one of your ancestors dies, great grandmother, great grandfather, grandmother, grandfather. When they die, if they haven't fulfilled their contracts, they can send it down to you to fulfill.
Great.
If they have a gift and talent, they can give it to you, right? So you might get a little bit of good gift and talent. You might get a little bit of opportunity to fulfill a contract. So you see what I'm saying? There's many permutations and computations to this. It's not a simple formula. It's not that we go up to heaven and we always have contracts when we come down here. Sometimes, even with our soul family, we just have a sort of agreement, let's all get born in the same generation so we meet again. That's kind of an agreement. It's not a contract in that we have to fulfill it. It's just an agreement. Let's all come together and enjoy life together. And then, like I said, things can go sideways. Someone else intervenes using their free will, and you don't get to fulfill it. You get to go back up to heaven during your life and decide. So let me give you a grounded sense of, so you would know when this is happening, Charlene, and the people who are listening would know. Have you ever felt in your life that everything's going along great, and all of a sudden, boom, you're projected into a dark night of the soul.
Mm.
And you just feel like everything that you've decided is called into question. It's like, oh, I'm not sure about my work anymore. I'm not sure about living here. I'm not sure that I like my family. I'm not sure that I like my partner. Not sure I even want to live in this country. So we re-examine everything. And then we typically go through healing. We go through, now my definition of healing, just so everybody that's listening knows, is healing is real transformation on 4 levels. Therapy means going over something, understanding it, maybe getting a new take on it. That's not real healing. Real healing to me means you change physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You're fundamentally different. You transform to the point where everything about something is different. So you go through actual healing during that dark night of the soul, and you come out the other side, you're a different person. And typically you reconnect to purpose and relationships. Sometimes you end up doing the same thing, only differently. Sometimes you stay in the same home, have same friends, but you're coming at it from a new perspective. But sometimes you change everything. There's times I've gone through where I left a partner, changed homes, changed what I was doing for my job, like fundamentally everything changed. Why do you think those things happen? They happen because there's been a change in the fabric of time and space and karma, right? Someone over there, has gone against their contract for life, or a whole group of people has wiped out another group of people, or someone that you had an agreement with has left your life, or a change has happened for the good. So um, I believe in the work of the Oneness University, the Oneness Academy, Shrima Bhagwan, Shri Krishnaji, and Preethaji. I believe in their work, and I believe they're an example of people who are making a difference on planet Earth. So when Sri Bhagwan started doing his work in the 80s, I believe that's why everybody on Earth felt like something shifted in the 80s. So some of the listeners might not have been very old at that time. If you're born in the 70s, you may have been only like 10 or 11. But for people who were born in the 50s or 60s, or even late 60s, you might remember around 1989, everybody felt like time was taken away, like we had less time. Everybody felt a compulsion to do their purpose. I believe that in part was because Sri Bhagwan got clear about his purpose. His son, Krishnaji, took the golden ball through him, began giving blessings. I believe that changed the fabric and the potentiality of everybody on earth. And then a lot of people went into a dark night of the soul because they needed to renegotiate, right? So it can happen from a good thing. We have to renegotiate our whole life purpose. And it can happen from something negative like World War I, World War II, 9/11. We all have to go through a dark night of the soul and renegotiate. And part of it, because part of a dark night of a soul is usually you pull yourself out of the world, you go more hibernate, you're reconfiguring, you're rethinking everything. That happens because of other people affecting our lives in a good way or a bad way.
Absolutely. And
Have I
sometimes,
brought more questions to the
yeah,
surface for you
my
again?
mind is, you can see everything is just reeling right now. Um, but I have to finish this topic about the contracts though, because I got goosebumps when you said that, if my uncle had come here to teach me a lesson, and yeah, I had the goosebumps. And then I remembered that if a certain person's birthday or death falls along another person who's close to you, their birthday or death, that there's something going on there. And there's no coincidence, I feel, that his birthday and my mom's birthday were the same. So with
Yes,
that,
it's jokingly, I label, there's a certain thing I label, which is birthday healing. So that's one thing that happens is we have healing that comes around our birthday because of our time of birth. But yes, our souls will signal things to us by bringing somebody into our life who has the same birthday, or an uncle that has a similar birthday as someone else. It's a way that our souls talk to us. Same as the number on your house or the number on a license plate in front of you. It's a way that our higher self communicates, notice this. This is important, right? Because we have pretty much most people have three guides. One of them is your guardian angel. The other two are spiritual guides. And then we have a higher self, and then we have an oversoul. The oversoul is just the aspect of our higher self that's closer to the divine. They're always interceding on our behalf to guide us. And one of the ways in which they guide us is to put in our face something like a date or weather or something, we see in a magazine that wakes us up to the spiritual realm. So yes, absolutely, we can notice a birth date or a particular date that something always happens, and it's there to teach us something.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. So I feel like there's more exploration there for sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So some people obviously come here to burn a lot of karma, right? How can you tell if you're one of those people?
Well, karma in us shows up as blocks, barriers, limitations. The most obvious way is where you've healed the crap out of something. You've gone to a million people, help me with this, and it's just not shifting, right? That's the most obvious way that you have karma, is it's just not moving because it's not meant to move, right? So there's some things. So again, I don't want to get off track, but it plays into this. There's some things we choose to take on that some people think are karmic and aren't. Like diabetes is an example of that, or having low blood sugar. We often take that on as a gift to limit us. Like I have a body that I can't not eat meat. I have to eat meat, and I need to eat about 3 meals a day, no matter what's going on. I believe I chose that to guide me because I'm a type triple A person. I just like go, 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 go. I'm so passionate. If I didn't have those limitations, I literally would just go from day to night not eating, right? So I believe, before I came to Earth, it's like, okay, I want to do a lot in this life, but give me some boundaries so I'm forced to remember to eat. Okay, I'm going to take this on. So that's not karma. That's me taking on a limitation to teach me. See the difference? Many people think those things are karmic. Sometimes they are, but often they're not. Often they're something we kind of know we need that. Maybe we've come. So an example would be you've come from another planet where we didn't relate to space and time. We didn't have to eat. We were etheric. So you come to this planet and you're kind of out of control. You want to do a lot. Well, I'm coming into a planet of form. Let me take on this limitation so it reminds me to eat. I'm going to take on diabetes, then I have to eat, right? We take that on as a learning or a lesson or a gift. It's not karmic. Remind me of your question because I've gone off
How can you
into
tell,
the ethers here.
how can you tell if you have a lot of karma to
Okay,
clear?
yeah. So the main answer is your blocks and barriers. The other thing is go to a psychic and ask. That can go up to the Akashic records. Go to an astrologer. Often the astrologer can tell you if you have a lot of karma. And then I find that people who are kind of on the cusp have a lot of karma, meaning they kind of want to be good, but they're kind of bad. You know, they're people who can't help but be manipulative, can't help but be egotistical, can't help but be a bit of a doink. Often they have some karma to work through because they're really trying to be good, but whoop, they get pulled back into something. The other way you can tell you have karma is the divine kicks out your feet from underneath you, right? So it's like you're going along and you're not listening to your divine, you're not sleeping or eating properly, or you're doing something that is going to take you sideways. The biggest ones are you're not sleeping enough, you're not eating properly, you're not having enough protein, you're wildly abusing your body or other people's bodies. The divine is going to take you out, meaning your own higher self's going to poof, here you go, here's a stroke, here's a heart attack, here's a car accident, going to take you out of life for a little bit. So you're forced to reflect on what you've been doing. That's an example where that person probably has some karma that they need to work out, but instead they're out of control.
That makes sense.
Something, or they have a purpose to fulfill, they're not fulfilling it. They're over here just obsessed with physical pleasure.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So when you do regression work with people, how do they heal? How do they heal that?
Great question. In my form of regression, and I want to give credit to all the people that I've learned with that brought me to my form of regression. So that would be Ian Curry, who wrote a book, You Cannot Die. He himself is on the other side, but he taught me when I was 17 years old and up. I went to him for regression. Chris Griscom, who wrote the book Time is an Illusion, Ecstasy is a New Frequency. She taught me when I went to the Light Institute, and then many other hypnotists that I learned with. What I learned is you should not do regression just for entertainment or just to see who you were in your past life. That's what I learned is really important to have a purpose. And if the purpose is transformation, that there's two ways you can create transformation. One is to release limiting decisions and emotional charges, and that's part of what I do. Limiting decisions are important, emotional charges are important because we carry those emotional charges with us lifetime after lifetime until they're felt and processed and released. So let me unpack what that means is, so if you have 3 lifetimes in the past where you've been traumatized as a female, maybe sexually abused or overpowered in some way, the emotional charges from all those lifetimes stay with you if you didn't get to feel them at the time that something was happening to you in that past life. And you have an opportunity in this life to go through a repeat of it to help you feel the emotional charges of that past life. But if you still don't feel it, if you go out of body, which many people do, they pop out and they don't feel, those charges stay with us and they are typically the cause of disease. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Disease is caused by emotional charges from past lives and this life. Then there's limiting decisions, meaning in those past lives, somebody, let's say it's a man, abuses you sexually or mentally, emotionally, verbally. You might make a decision that men are mean. You might make a decision that women are weak. Those things are not true. That's why we call them limiting. It's not true. It's not the real truth of life. It's not true that men are always mean. It's not true that women are always powerless. It's just something that happened to you that you decided in that life, in that moment. But those decisions also stay wired in our energy field. And our energy field is what is with us in perpetuity, right? So we have this energy field, we bring that into this life, and we are still affected by those limiting decisions. So when I do regression, I take people back into those moments with the express purpose of doing one of two possibilities, either releasing emotional charges and limiting decisions, or bringing back an imprint of something of a higher vibration than what you have now. You can either go back and heal and let go of stuff, or go back and bring something back that's better than what you have now. When we do the first one, which is releasing things, take you back into that moment, we examine what did you experience physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We release each of those. How do we release it? We use vibration. We clear vibration with vibration. Vibration is a color, a sound, a movement. Some people relate more to using a symbol. Some people relate more to using color. So we use that in the body to release emotional charges that is stored in our cellular memory, in our literal the cells of our body and in our energy field. That's true transformation. You take somebody back and you clear those 4 levels, they come back, they're different, completely different in this life. When we do the other one, which is the imprinting, let's say it's you go back into a past life to find something better where you may be a woman and you're empowered. Maybe you had a lot of personal power, maybe wealth, maybe influence, a lot of confidence. Maybe you had a man in your life who was kind and gentle. So you go back there to pick up new decisions, new experiences. We wire that in your body typically with a symbol. Again, the symbol is holographic on 4 levels. You have that experience, you bring back that imprint to this life again, you're transformed. I'm simplifying a lot of steps, but that's basically the concept that I use with regression, and it's very transformational.
Mm-hmm.
People can go from fear and limitation, not knowing why they have a fear of something, change it, come back into this life, and be unafraid and operate differently. Different feelings, different ability to move forward, different decisions. And the magic of it, I call it magic because it really is part of the divine plan and beyond what we can comprehend, is when you come back, you literally vibrate differently, that then you magnetically attract a whole different world, a whole different life, different people, different experiences that match this new vibrational frequency, these new decisions, these new feelings. That's the transformative part, is you literally then magnetize a whole new experience that, like, we can't comprehend all the computations and permutations of it because it's part of the divine plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. I know I've done so many sessions with you, and it is always so extremely empowering, especially with the recreation of the life to something that is um more powerful, more in your best essence, I would say, right? So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
that always leaves me in in a high vibe afterwards. So it's really, really important. And I have noticed, I mean, you've known me for over 10 years, and I've made a humongous shift from the first time that you and I had met, for sure. Right. So I owe a lot to you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
from all the things that you've done, but yeah, thank you for that. And again, the reason I want to acknowledge the people that taught me is because of my transformation. When I was in my teens, I had a completely different experience of my parents because of doing past life regression. And coming back to the theme of karma, one of the things that Ian Curry said to me when he was working with me, because one day I asked him, I said, "Why do you do this work?" He said, "You know what, Janet? I have a number of lifetimes where I was the bad guy. I was the sorcerer. I was the person who, gave people poisons. I put spells and hexes on people. I had a lot of dark lives." And he said, "So I decided when I came into this life that I would help people to transform and be in the light." And he said, "I am always wary of that." He says, "I still carry that knowledge." He says, "I know that I could affect people and influence people and manipulate them, but I'm always balancing that and saying, what can I do to help this person?" So he's a great example of somebody who made a contract with himself to come into this life and do good. And he did affect a lot of people. He taught, I believe, psychology at the University of Guelph. He wrote a book, and his life influenced a lot of people because he literally disappeared. So one of the things that he did was he decided he was just going to go to the other side, and it's always been a mystery what happened to him. And I believe he did just literally evaporate and go into spirit form because he asked about that for a long time. Yeah,
Oof.
so interesting story. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The potential that we have is it's crazy. So much potential if we tap into it, right?
Well, just look at the life of Christ, right?
Yeah.
Christ went to the other side. Now, he prepared for years. He prepared his Ka body consciously. He knew that that was his purpose. He knew that he was coming here to show us we could go to the other side and come back. So he consciously prepared for that like an athlete for years and learned how to do it, how to manage his Ka body. Went to the other side, came back, and I believe he lived for many years afterwards. He disappeared, but he lived many years afterwards. But again, not to digress, but he's a great example of what we all can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So other ways that people can heal, I believe, ceremony, right? You could do a ceremony to help heal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again,
Um,
um, when I help people with ceremony, again, we're working on the 4 levels, transforming physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And a ceremony, one way of doing a ceremony is to symbolically play those things out, right? So you can have a ceremony where you're by water, you write on a piece of paper the things you want to let go of, the things you want to bring in. You ceremonialize or symbolize letting go of those things by placing the water in the river, and you ceremonialize bringing new things in by writing them on a piece of paper and keeping them in a vessel that you pray over. Right? But so ceremony is is a very powerful way to heal. And often what's great about a ceremony is you can bring other people into it to have their support and their intentionality gather together with yours to give more power to the ceremony.
Okay. Okay. And that could be with fire or water, you said, right?
Yeah, ceremony, you can use nature, you can use fire and water as symbols of the transformation. Some people do it by burying something. Some people just do it by speaking, just expressing to a
Okay.
group of people. Like a marriage is a ceremony, a bar mitzvah is a ceremony, right? But you can also ceremonialize a change in your life. Let's say you're changing careers, you can have a group of people come together and ceremonialize it that way.
Okay, great. Thank you. One time you had mentioned to me to stop, like if you have bad karma with somebody, another way to shift it is to stop thinking about that person. So you're not constantly thinking negative thoughts, right? And what I had thought about at that time was, is that not spiritual bypassing? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I think what you're asking about, Sholina, is about taking responsibility for what we're putting out in the world.
Mhm.
So yes, we need to take responsibility for, so if we've thought about somebody and we're angry with them or we're thinking mean thoughts, I wish they would die, or I wish they had something bad happen to them, we need to take responsibility and clean that up. So yes, I would be the first person to say, do a process. So you could do a ceremony, do a prayer, do a process to clean up what you've done first, right? So you put out bad energy, clean that up. Um, Part of cleaning it up could be praying for that person. That's really what, if you're familiar with the Ho'oponopono, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you. If you're familiar with that process, which comes from the spiritual beliefs of the kahunas who are Hawaiian, if you that's one way you can ceremonialize giving good energy to that person. But then once you've sort of balanced and taken responsibility for that, it's good to cut cords and to direct your energy elsewhere. So you're not creating negative karma for yourself and you're not negatively affecting someone. You're putting your energy into, rather than thinking mean thoughts or being upset with this person, I'm going to put my energy into building new good relationships, into helping my child, helping my friend. So it's about taking responsibility for what you've put out in the world, cleaning that up, and then redirecting your energy into a higher vibrational frequency.
Sure, but sometimes it's habitual, right? Or you can't really, like, yeah, let's say you've done all that, you've done the work, but then I remembered something else that he did. And I'm like, oh, you know, thinking bad thoughts again. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to redirect my thoughts in this direction. But when does that become spiritual bypassing, though? Because
Yeah,
obviously,
I'm
if the
I'm
emotions are still coming up, there's still something there, right?
yeah, I wouldn't call it spiritual bypassing. I would call it bringing attention to the darkness, right? So one of the things that I learned when I went to India this January to the Oneness University was they spoke about what they call maras. When they described it as dark clouds. It comes from the ancient Vedic literature, I believe. But if we bring it up to date to what the terminology you and I might use would be negative thoughts or even negative entities. So if you bring attention to your negative thoughts, meaning you notice that you're thinking bad about this person or you're obsessing about something that they did, it's not spiritual bypassing to bring attention to it, to tell yourself, this is what I'm doing. And what I do, which really works for me, is I say, I don't want to give my life over to the darkness. I'm not going to let the dark forces win. I'm not going to let all those people out there right now who are trying to bring everybody down. There's no way I'm going to let them win. So that's what I say to myself is, you're not going to win. I'm going to take my attention over here to something that's positive. That's not me spiritually bypassing something. As long as I pay attention to, do I still have healing? Because if you are thinking about something from your past, I guarantee you that's your soul giving you a message. Remember I said about sleep? During sleep, we go back and remember things. We go up to our Akashic records. Our soul talks to us. We get instruction. We get learning. We're doing all sorts of things when we sleep, even though we think that this body is resting. Yes, this body is resting, but our soul has left the body and is doing a lot of work. And during that time, that's when they will bring your attention to, hey, wake up. You're remembering this thing that happened because you still need to heal your beliefs about men or your beliefs about women or your beliefs about people, or you need to redefine yourself. So if you're thinking about that, yes, bring attention to it and go see somebody and get some healing if you can't do it yourself, or go and do a ceremony or go and do a process or do something to transform that, because the message might be you need to heal something about it, right? And then secondly, it's not spiritual bypassing to notice it and bring your attention over here and think about something else. That's being conscious. That's waking up to, I'm wasting my time over here. So yes, do the underlying healing, get help to assess, is there underlying healing? And then do the redirecting. Both of those things are the actions of a highly conscious person, not spiritual bypass.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for clearing that up. Okay, that makes sense. I have one more question.
Yes.
During regression, many people believe that, or they have experiences where they were a king or a queen or some type of royalty, and it comes up a lot. And I know that we couldn't all have been kings or queens in our past lives as much as we would want to. So, why is that? It's that, like, why does that happen? How does the subconscious or the soul take you to that lifetime if you weren't really a king or queen? Can you explain that?
Well, two things are true. Um, we have to remember there was a time on Earth, many times on Earth, where there were noble men and noble women. Right. So there were times on Earth, especially in the British Isles, when there were kings and queens and 1,000 noble men and women underneath them who owned land under the feudal system and thought of themselves as princes or princesses or kings or queens. So it's possible that you may be going back to a life where you felt that way because you owned land and other people were paupers underneath you. So sometimes we're recapitulating a life where we felt that way, right? So that's also a possibility. Then the second thing is, remember I said there's two reasons for doing past life that I utilize. There's many others, but the two main reasons. One is to let go of something, one is to bring something in. So your soul might take you into a lifetime where you had power or where you had influence or where you were a loving, powerful being with a lot of money, a lot of wealth, because you don't have that in this life. So sometimes our soul will take us into an experience and create a reality with us, pop us into a life to imprint something. And maybe that life didn't exactly exist like that, but it's a holographic experience that we need. And sometimes what also occurs is a lot of people go back and think they were Christ's best friend or there when Christ was being crucified. That happens because it is a holographic conscious memory placed in all of us on purpose by the divine to give us the Christos or the Christ consciousness, because it is part of our nature. It's part of our nature. We all know inside of ourselves we could be as Christ. We can do the same healing as Christ. We can go to the other side and come back. We have to develop ourselves. Like I said, Christ took many years to develop his ka body to the point where he could do that. But guess what? We're living in a time on earth where many people's ka bodies are growing to that state naturally because of the vibration of the earth, because of the other people that are awakened. We're getting to a place where it wouldn't take as much work as Christ had to do for as many years for us to develop our ka bodies. But, you know, we go into those times where we experience Christ again because our soul says we need this lesson. We need to remember our Christ consciousness inside of ourselves. We might be learning how to be a teacher. We might be learning how to be a speaker, how to be a writer, how to teach other people. But we need that imprint of there was a being on earth who was that unconditionally loving. We need to go back there and bring that back to the present. So past life work isn't just visiting our own past lives. Past life work is a holographic experience to help us to heal. See the difference?
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
many different flavors and ways that it shows up. And so, yeah, so we might experience ourselves as a king or queen or as the Napoleon in order for us to bring back some quality of that person to share with others, in order for us to experience being a mean person, in order for us to make a new decision about this life, a new decision about our purpose, a new decision about our gifts and talents, and to bring that frequency into the world right now.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because I have had clients in the past when I've taken them through past life regression, they'll say, was any of that, I don't know if that was real. And then my response would be that it doesn't matter if it was really real or not. It's your subconscious or your soul taking you back to that situation to imprint what it is that you need in this lifetime, right? But I think you explained it better. You have to re-listen
Yeah,
to it.
and I agree with you, Charlene. Sometimes I say to people, it isn't really something we can always track. We can't always go into the records of birth and find out, did that person really exist at that time, and was that you? However, I'm agreeing with you. What I can tell you 1,000% is going back in time into past lives and healing something or bringing back an imprint absolutely can transform this life and produce healing and evolution. That's what we do it for. We don't do it to prove our past lives or who we were. We do it for healing. And that's why, like I said, sometimes our guides will intervene and take us somewhere that wasn't our past life, but we definitely need something from that.
Right. That's beautiful. It's amazing. So many
Yeah.
opportunities and so many ways to heal. It's really, I'm in awe of it all, actually. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. There's so much more I want to talk to you about.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing to evolve, and thank you for this opportunity to dialogue with you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Until next time, Janet, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye for now.